Hey, this is Martha, and this is the first episode of Crumb, where I'm going to be sharing the recipes I made when I had my bakery. And today I'm going to be making coconut cream pie. So first I'm going to be making the crust that I used to make for my pies, which I think was the #1 thing that stood out about my pies. For the recipe, it's equal parts in weight, butter and flour. So I have 228 grams of flour and 228 grams of cold butter, and I cut them up into smallish pieces. They don't have to be super consistent. So then dump into your flour, and you can give them a bit of a coat. What I do is kind of like you separate the pieces. Okay, so I have the pieces separated, and then just what you do is you take the pieces and you smash them flat. This recipe is pretty like old-fashioned, I would say, but due to the ratios that we're gonna have, it's a pretty strong dough, so it's not one that you have to be worried about. Like, you don't have to be stressed that you're gonna be breaking the dough. People get stressed out about pie dough recipes because they're worried it's gonna break or they mess it up, and this one is kind of like, whatever. Oh, I forgot to add my sugar and salt, so it's about a tablespoon of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. Then I have cold water, and I'm going to put in about 90 grams of cold water. We're just gonna toss it kind of like with your fingers kind of moving. This is a higher amount of water than most pie recipes. It kind of helps develop it to be a bit of a stronger dough. It's almost like close to being a rough puff pastry. So then once I've kind of, and it looks kind of shaggy-ish, then I just kind of start pressing till it mostly comes together. All right, so it's basically one piece. I'm gonna generously dust my work surface. This is another thing, you don't have to worry about incorporating more flour, that's fine. So then we're just going to press it into a general rectangle. And then just gonna roll it out. Don't worry if it starts to split. We're gonna be kind of doing like a simple version of lamination. Always kind of lifting it to make sure it is not sticking, or if you don't have a wood surface. Whenever I was on a granite countertop in our old home, it would kind of stick. I don't really have a specific size I roll it out to, or just kind of like when it feels right. So I don't know, like 1/8 of an inch maybe. And so we're gonna do our first folds. So kind of like in to the center and then fold it in half. And then in half the opposite direction. And then pat it down again. And we're just repeating that same process again. So rolling out, and you'll be able to tell it already is able to stick together more. Whenever you're rolling, don't put pressure on your rolling pin on your way back, just only on the way out. So I'm gonna fold in and fold in, fold in half, and then fold in half the opposite direction. I'm just doing it over top a bit to get rid of those rough ends. This is making either 2 single crust pies or 1 double crust pie. We're just doing 1 single crust, but this freezes really well. So we can roll it out, shape it, put it in the pie tin, and we can have it ready in the freezer for us. So then we're just rolling out into a circle as best we can. This dough is nice that you don't have to do any waiting during the process. A lot of the other traditional pie doughs will have you like have a rest time after mixing to let the gluten rest. This one's much nicer. So then I take my pie tin just kind of to see, and you want, I would say, a good inch all around. This is where we don't have to be gentle with our pie dough. We don't have to do the little roll up on the pin or anything like that. And we're plonking it in, and then really make sure that you get it into the corners so it doesn't shrink too much. Nice and tight, and then I kind of just do a push down too. Okay, so then I'm just gonna cut off any too excessive of a hangover. My Korean husband has shown me the joys of scissors in the kitchen. And then I'm gonna take some of the hangover, I'm gonna tuck it under. Just all the way around. Okay, so we've kind of tucked some pieces under. Everyone has a different technique for how they crimp the pie dough. I've tried others and my brain like can't handle it, so I just take my thumb and index finger and my thumb of my other finger, and I just pinch them and push with the thumb all the way around. And then if you have extra pie plates, you can always take it, press it down, and give you a bit of a cleaner. Easy peasy. Into the fridge. So I have my pie dough that I rolled last night sitting in the fridge. First, what we're going to do is poke the bottom with some tines of the fork just to kind of release some of that air. So then either the extra pie tin you have or tin foil is my go-to for lining when we par bake our crust. I don't know, I find like parchment paper can tear and stuff, so pie tin or tin foil, and because of the metal, it bakes really well and crisps it up better. So we're just gonna grease it into the pie. I don't have pie weights because I don't like them, but you can use rice or sugar. I don't have rice, I usually use rice, but I have some brand new sugar, so I'm gonna use sugar to weigh it down. With the sugar, it is going to toast, but you can pulse it after it's toasted and use it in recipes like cakes and stuff if you want a subtle caramel flavor, so it's always good to have around. All right, into the oven. I've preheated to 350. Check your oven to make sure it's accurate. Our oven is 50 degrees hot, so I'm actually setting it to 300, but it's 350. So just into the middle of the oven, middle rack. Okay, so I'm ready to take out the weights from the pie. This is partly why I like the tin, so easy to remove. Still looks a bit wet on the bottom, but it starts to dry out around this area, so that's good, and that's just going back in the oven. Keep an eye on it, but we want it nicely browned because that's where all the flavor is. There's nothing worse than a pale pie crust. So back into the oven. And let's check in at 20 minutes. This pie crust does take some time. While the pie shell's baking, we're gonna make our coconut cream pie filling. So what you need is 400 milliliters coconut milk, which is 1 standard can, 120 grams of milk. I use Homo, but you can use 2%, that's fine. So I'm just going to have the coconut milk and milk in a pot, and we're just gonna heat it up to scald it essentially, and then we can measure out the other ingredients while we're at it. All right, so into a bowl, 140 grams of sugar, 40 grams of flour. Just mix up your sugar and flour. 2 eggs. And then 2 yolks. Separated however you're comfortable with. So then just the eggs into our sugar flour mixture. Break them up nicely so that you don't have little weird eggy bits. Look as close actually. Huh, okay. Ow. How did it splatter? So it's not boiling. We've got steam. So before we start cooking our custard, get ready for when you have to strain it. I always strain my custard because you might have a gross eggy bit and nothing ruins custard faster. I hate it, it makes it disgusting. And I get in many fights with my mother about it because she hates the straining stage. So we're just going to take our hot milk and temper our egg mixture with it. So put a little bit in at a time, just so our eggs don't become scrambled eggs. You gotta do it slowly. Otherwise the heat would shock them into cooking. You don't always have to pour all of it into the egg mixture, just enough to get it up to temp. So back into the pot. So now I do medium-ish heat where we're just going to stir the custard, and you just stand over it, whisking until it gets to the right thickness. So we'll see that when it's ready. Okay, pie dough's cooking. Actually, pretty close to it being ready. You can take breaks, just keep an eye on it. Ooh, this got very dark. You want it to be nice and golden for the flavor. Don't be afraid to go darker, just don't go black. So our custard is starting to thicken up. You can definitely tell it gets less bubbly, frothy looking on top, and it just kind of starts to look creamy. What we're going to get to is a boil, because we have that starch in there, so you need it to come to a boil and cook for a bit so that we can cook off that starchy flavor. Most cream pies are with a cornstarch, but the flour in this one kind of makes it like a softer and smoother and creamier. I like it. Okay, so we're at a boil for a custard. If you start seeing blubs, that's a boil. So we're gonna keep going 30 seconds to a minute of constant stirring while it's at this boil. And that's when we're cooking out the starchy flavor. There's a bit of like a shine, satiny shine to it too. Turn off the heat. And this is why you want your setup all ready to go, because we're just gonna bring the pot over and immediately put it through the strainer. And if you have any burnt bits in your pot, don't scrape them out, just leave them. Okay, and then we're just straining out. Push it with your spatula through your sieve. Okay. Yeah, so there's like little egg whitey bits in there. It's gross. We've got our custard, salt, vanilla, and our toasted coconut. So about a ½ teaspoon of salt. I like to add it at the end. I feel like when you add it in before the cook, then you kind of like lose the impact from it. A little bit of vanilla. I don't think you need to worry about measuring too much, but ½ teaspoon. So we'll stir that in. Toasted flaked coconut. You can do whatever like shredded flaked coconut you have lying around. So we're just going to dump in 90 to 100 grams. This is why it's okay that our custard is a little thinner, because this toasted coconut is going to soak up some of that excess moisture. All right, so our pie crust is still warm. It's fine, I've done it a million times. I'm dumping the final custard into the shell. Cover with saran on top of the custard This is to prevent a skin from forming. So into the fridge and back in a couple hours while I go get cream that I forgot to buy. I've never really weighed out, so I'm just gonna eyeball it and then say what the amount seems to be. Let's say 200-ish. So I'm using icing sugar for my sweetener, and with that little bit of cornstarch in it, it can also act as a bit of a stabilizer for the cream so that it can sit out a bit longer than, say, just granulated sugar, but it's not necessary. You can use granulated as well. Let's say a tablespoon and a half to start, and a little pinch of salt. And then we just whip it until stiff peaks. You can do it by hand too. I've done that before. I'm tired. My cat woke me up at 5:30 a.m. today, so I don't have it in me to whip it by hand. If you're hand whipping, you're most likely never going to worry about over whipping, but you just need to stop it before it curdles. We've got our pie ready, and you'll see how set it is. That peels off super clean. And plopping it onto the pie. And then with whatever you have, I like an offset spatula because they're very satisfying to use and give you nice swoops. Just spread it pretty evenly. And then with the offset spatula, I kind of just like to do woo, 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 some swoops. With leftover toasted coconut, sprinkle a little bit on top. And we're done. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more of these recipes, follow along and like this, and see you soon. Did he say